I have done 157 interviews with ordinary Kenyans who lived during the extraordinary times of the 1930s, 1940s, and 1950s. And what I was asking them, or what I was listening to, was I was just basically listening to the stories of their history and their everyday lives. What did they eat? How did they live? And so on and so forth. Those stories have been published in a book called Living Memories, and there's another one coming out on October 2nd or something at the Hay Festival. Anyway, some of the things that I have learned and that are relevant to this conversation is that those ordinary people worked very hard to survive in very difficult times, but they used their history and they used the knowledge that they already had in their indigenous lives to survive, to eat, to live. When I listened to Julie show us Eden, and when I have listened to the various discussions, and I'm constantly involved in conversations about innovation and how we shall find green solutions to a better future in Africa before it becomes a crisis. One of the things that occurs to me is that there are very simple things that we must do. For example, one of the old people that I spoke to told me a story of how in the about 1936, 1937, there was a bit of a drought. And what they had to do was that they had to focus on plants that grow all weather. These are plants that are not very popular with even our age group and our children. Sorghum, millet, sorghum leaves, millet, pumpkins, and that sort of thing. I know for my younger sisters, when we had to serve them spinach, we had to give it a French name for them to agree to eat it and put a little bit of milk and serve it differently. But these are the same things that we have to do because of the fact that, as you heard, we're going into La Nina and so on. I work for a philanthropic organization now, and just by using some of these principles, we have already seen that communities within Kenya are growing food organically in Isiolo, in Garissa, in Mwingi, which are the driest parts of this country. And as they do this, what they're doing is that they're taking advantage of 4 simple measures. And these are the simple measures that were important during the days of their grandfathers. Number 1, they harnessed water and they use it very carefully. Number 2, they actually do grow the food, but when they grow the food, they use every part of the plant in their nutrition. So the leaves, the seeds, the actual outputs, if it's corn and so on, they use all of it. They will use it for compost in some cases. They will use some of it to restore their soil. They will use some of it to eat, and they'll use some of it to sell. Number 3, and perhaps most important, is that they have begun to do the simple things that they used to do before we got desperate. They started to do terraces, yet again. In Garissa, just as you go towards the Tana, you will find that there are communities that are there that are growing amazing amounts of food. They're bringing trucks and trucks and trucks of food into Nairobi for sale. And what they're doing is that they just build terraces that allow them to reclaim the environment. And number 4, in the old days, in my grandmother's days, in your grandmother's days, they used to have granaries, which would help them to store grains and other foods for the time when there is no rain. And truth is that right now we have been experiencing the same sort of situation that they exhibited in the 1930s and worse still. And the truth is that communities within Kenya today, in the driest parts of this country, except for the ones that you met, Julie, that want to continue to be thin, but there are lots of communities in those areas that are doing very well because they're storing the food that they have grown. I have only 3 minutes of time, so that is all I had to say. Thank you very much.